is the Honeydew Carpenter and the always beautiful Mrs. Honeydew Carpenter. This is our Saturday morning live show. It's kind of a big time for us. Last week, we announced that we were going to release the book on the rocket stove and with all the plans and dimensions and the DIY steps on how to construct it. That being said, we had some huge developments. And first off, I want to start by saying I understand that Melanie and I went kind of radio silence for over a year. And, you know, we were able to, every once in a while when we would get into town and get data, we could read some comments and people were a little frustrated. And your frustration is not lost on us. I mean, we understand it. And we knew when we moved up to this off-grid property and it was just a piece of raw land, no water, no nothing, that it, you know, no internet, no anything, that it was going to be a little bit of a risk, you know, and that we were going to lose some subscribers, which we definitely have, you know, but we are back. And it's a culmination that has come to this point. We knew that we needed to be in a position where we could live with this rocket stove and not be hypocrites and just say, oh yeah, I invented this thing and I think it'll work. So having said that, we are not releasing it today. It'll be within 24, 48 hours that we will release the book.
48.
There have been some huge developments that have happened this past week. We didn't want to release the video of it burning wet wood until we had the PDF up and ready for people to go and get, because it's going to be a huge thing. I mean, it is a big freaking deal. This is like, bar none, absolutely the most efficient, no carbon emissions, green burning wood stove on the face of the planet. Plus, it makes hydrogen in the stove. It makes hydrogen and burns off hydrogen. I was like, I would hear it. I was loaded up with wet wood. It's starting to do it right now. It's going woof, woof, woof. And I put that wet wood in like 5 minutes ago. But because of the foundry style, the refractory mix. I mean, this refractory mix is, you know, 4,000 degree mix. It's stuff they use to make crucibles out of for molten steel in foundries. Okay? And then I have it insulated with aircrete. Now, if you haven't watched What is Aircrete, you need to go watch it, because I actually, in one of my experiments with it, I built a forge out of aircrete and was melting soft steel in it. So it was up above 3,000 degrees. And I shut it off and pulled the top off, and it's just sitting there glowing red hot. And there was no breaks in it. It wasn't an edited video. And I just stuck my hand down right on the side of the forge, my bare hand. And it only had 2.5 inches of aircrete around it. I mean, the insulative properties of aircrete are just insane. So, you know, you put that wet wood in this hot box, and my stove gets, I've recorded temperatures in it. Oh, and by the way, that's one thing. 5 years ago when I started this project, you could not even get a thermal temperature gun that would go up to the temperatures that this stove got at. My first one was this that I got at Home Depot, and it went up to 750 degrees. And then I found another one online that went up to 1,000 degrees, 999, and that's all I had to work with. So how I determined that it was burning hot back there, I'd put different welding rod alloys, and I knew kind of a 300 or 400 degree range at where they would melt, and so that's how I determined how hot it was back there. Mm-hmm. However, now I have this, okay? New technology, just recent. This thing will record temperatures up to 3,272 degrees. And the interesting thing about it is when I was trying to shoot the back of my stove, if there's any flames going, I just shoot the flames, and it doesn't record the actual temperature of what it's making. And so on an off-site last year in a shop, you know, where I didn't really care too much about getting smoke everywhere, I just let it get good and hot, and I pulled all the wood out, and then I shot it. And I recorded temperatures up to 2,878 degrees. Now, of course, where there's no flame in the front, just a couple inches back, I can go in and shoot it, and it's usually running around 11, 12, 1,300 degrees just at the front of the burn box. You know, when I say front, I mean maybe 2.5, 3 inches back in. And so think about this though. You load it with wet wood. It's in this hot box, gasification chamber, and I was just trying to figure out what is going on here. What is going on here? And so I was going through some scientific papers. There's a lot of research out there right now on hydrogen because they're trying to create these solar hydrogen plants where they like almost magnifying glass the sun energy onto a to create what's called high temperature steam electrolysis. And that's where you take steam and you make a high temperature out of it, and it breaks apart and releases the hydrogen gas. And that happens between 750 degrees centigrade and 900 degrees centigrade is its sweet spot where that happens. Oh, it just so happens that my stove, even at the front, is 750 degrees centigrade, and at the back, it's way over the 1,652 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 900 degrees centigrade. And so I've discovered and figured out what's going on, because I'll put these wet logs in, and there will be it won't burn on the ends, you know, because it's just kind of puts a char on the outside, and the steam is coming out the end so fast it won't burn it. I've even pulled logs out that have started burning off the hydrogen, and it makes this kind of clear blue greenish flame, and the flame speed is way faster than normal flames. It's crazy.
It's funny. You guys should see how often he's sitting here playing with the wood in and out of the stove.
Right. Well, it sucks so hard that not much smoke gets in the house because...
No, it really doesn't. It's just funny because he is enjoying himself. He's in like heaven.
All right, but that being said, this development came along. Also, the book file it's massive. It's huge, and we were trying to figure out a way to compress it without losing a lot of its clarity and whatnot. And so that has taken some time to figure out. And basically, we've got that stuff figured out and whatnot. And so I believe we can have it ready in 24 to 48 hours. The reason I say that, I'd really like to send it out at least a day ahead of time to those people that pre-bought it, you know. And they stuck with us all this time. You know, I had a head injury. I couldn't finish the book, and I'm so freaking excited. I knew it was a huge risk to come up here. I knew it was a huge risk to go radio silence, and that we would lose a lot of people. And I'm hoping they come back and they're like start enjoying some of the stuff that I'm doing, because there's going to be way more to come, way more. These underground structures that I've built. You know, I kind of teased you a little bit with our underground root cellar, but I'm really excited. So anyways, finding out that my stove like makes hydrogen, and it's safe, because I mean hydrogen, they try and compress it and put it in fuel cells, and it's just way volatile and so for home use and different things, they're trying to figure these things out. I just went through and studied it and read a lot of scientific papers on what they're trying to do to solve these things so that they can actually use hydrogen, because it gives off no emissions. There's no, I mean, it's one of the greenest fuels on the face of the planet, and it's so weird to look in my stove and the wood's not burning, but there's this huge just green flame going, just rushing up the riser. It's the craziest thing you've ever seen.
It is actually.
And we have all the footage, and we're going to release those videos, but we're not going to release them. We're going to release them at the same time we release the book, because it's a big deal. I mean, when you're talking about an alternative heat source for your home if the grid goes down or something like that, this book and these plans and this information is something that you are going to at the very least want to have in a drawer. And then the things that are integral for it, like, you know, a bag of this high temp refractory mix and maybe a piece of sheet metal or whatnot, and you just might want to keep on hand. It's like cheap insurance in case something happens. And look at what's happening. I mean, you've got Texas having these freezings and everything, which is really weird. And you know, who knew? And the fact that I can just go down to my tree down there and cut down a live tree and stick it in and start burning it is insane. You know, I mean, this could potentially be
That
like
being
a
said,
life-saving
you don't
thing.
want to try and start it with wet wood.
No, you do have to have a little dry wood on hand, because to warm up what essentially ends up being a gasification chamber, because it starts. You put it in that hot chamber and it starts steaming out the wood. It just sits there, does nothing for a little bit, and then it goes woo, 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 and you look in there and the wood's not burning, but it's crazy.
It is crazy. Let's go ahead. Jason H. He says, I realize that people have lives. It is what it is. It is what it is, and sometimes you don't know what people are going through.
Right.
Mike Crypto So Williams says, hi from Tennessee. Hi. Jason says, FYI, I bought the PDFs. Jason, that is such a blessing. Thank you. We hope you get a lot of use out of them. My Gate Farms says, morning, y'all, from North Central Montana. Yeah. Well, hello. And I know that you have been one of the ones that have followed us for a long time, and we really, truly appreciate that. Jason H. says, that's how it burns so mightily with wet wood. Yes. Kenny Bean says, hey, hope all is well. Kenny, we hope all is well with you too. Ken Nelson says, like, subscribe, and share. That is awesome. Thank you so much.
Why not?
Jason says, those aren't good enough. You need a 2000 FIRM. Is that what you got?
This goes up to 3,272 degrees.
Yeah, the first two.
The first two
is probably, yeah.
You're right. They are not good enough. But these weren't even available when I first started this project.
Gail says, hello, my buds. I went through withdrawal while you guys were offline. I missed you guys so much. So very glad to see you back with us. We are so glad to be back. And we hope to eventually share some of our big struggles that we had during that time and everything. With
I
you
mean,
guys.
you got Mrs. Honeydew is a trooper. Like all last winter, the only thing we had to bathe in was a galvanized bathtub. It was just an old 1900s cowboy bathtub, and I put a potbelly stove in a tent, like 50 feet up a trail from our, more than 50 feet, like 150 feet up a trail from our camper. And I put a coil of copper in it, and we had to drain the hose from the hydrant coming up to it every time, or we couldn't use it after that if we got ice in the hose.
You had to start a fire.
Yeah, I had to start a fire.
Keep it going.
Yeah, and get the water running through it. And I created a little potbelly stove on-demand hot water system, and it would run hot water into the bathtub, and I would get a nice hot bathtub all ready for Mrs. Honeydew, and then she would go up to the tent and be freezing on the way up, and then she would get in the tent. Of course, the stove was going in there, so it was warm in there at least. And yeah, I mean, there was tons of struggles. We even have some footage of that stove and me building it that we have never posted, but it's kind of neat material.
Jason says, I really wish we could harness that stove burn to make a turbine rotate and make electricity. Wouldn't that just be amazing if we could figure that out and do something like that? And I'm sure.
Yeah, that would require me putting a right up on the top of the riser inside the stove, putting a coil, probably either a stainless steel or a steel coil, which you can buy. You just have to have a flaring tool, and they have they use them for brake lines on big trucks and stuff. And so as long as it's not copper or something that might melt, because this makes really high temperatures, and so it need to be something that I might even have to do a secondary and just put it on top of this or something. But yeah, you could make a steam pump out of this real easy.
Right. So Jason, he says, by the way, I know I missed it, but how could I make a payment for the book? I didn't find any links. There's no links yet. There will be a link in like 2 days for that, and it will be live to purchase, and you'll get the book then. There's going to be 2 ways to purchase it. One through our Etsy store. The Etsy store is going to be like split up in chapters, and you'll have to download it. So
yeah, because of how we had to compress it, and it kind of affects the clarity a little bit. So there will be another way where it's completely uncompressed, and so it's like high resolution digital. So,
and we'll supply both links for that, so you guys can decide which way you would prefer to buy it.
Yeah.
And what's easiest for you guys. Luke says, I have existing chimney that I was going to put the insulated pipe in for the rocket stove. Do you see an issue with this? Thanks.
Okay, nope. I do not. So the way this stove works to create and make sure it maintains a negative pressure, because this is not sealed, this whole thing, it's just pop riveted. There's really no seal on it. And to maintain a negative pressure, you kind of have to have at least 2 sections of aircrete insulated stovepipe, which, that's part of the book as well. My chimney goes up 22 feet. So I just put 2 sections. It's got this stainless steel beautification ring. And then what I did was I stuffed the scrub bud, the stainless steel scrubbies, in around so that the perlite wouldn't fall out the bottom. And I actually did put a little mortar cement in there too on the bottom. And I put a reducer from the 5-inch to a 4-inch and went up through all the way, about a foot above where it ended. So about, 23, 24 feet. And the rest of that is just double-walled stovepipe filled around with perlite. Yeah. Now that's important. You want to have some insulative measure. And Julie's stove, and her chimney just pulls like a banshee. And I dropped a 5-inch liner down her 8-inch chimney and poured perlite all around it. And I sealed it with mortar on the bottom and then on the top, and so that, you know, snow can't get it wet or anything. And her chimney, when I put the rocket stove on it, it pulled so hard, it just, I mean, and that's one thing that that Julie, it concerned her, because it pulled so hard, and I just have that like 1/4 inch at the bottom of the inner flap where the air goes in, right where the fire is, so it almost creates forge-like temperatures in there, and it burns the wood ultra fast. And so I am gonna start burning just pretty much, I burn about 75% wet wood. In fact, this wood that I have stacked right here, I just chopped it this morning. And and it was wood that Melanie and I gleaned from a logging operation slash pile. Now this is the wood that they don't want to send to the mill or whatever, and they just put it in big piles, and then they let it go through a summer heat, and then the next year they burn them, and it just goes to waste. And so we have access to a lot of free wood. However, you have to go get it out of the snow, you know, which we did, and we can do a video on that. I got lots of pictures of that when we went up and got that wood.
But what I love about this stove pulling hard and having the insulated chimney is every time you go to open it, you don't get that puff of smoke coming out in your face. You don't have a bunch of smoky smell. A lot of times you can't even tell we're actually burning.
In fact, you can't.
Yeah. In
fact, in our house, it doesn't smell like everyone else's house who burns a wood stove. It smells like we have a gas furnace in here, is what it essentially smells like. And so even if we let it completely go out and there's no coals and nothing, and we have to relight it, you reach in there and it's like, oh crap, the core is still hot, and so it's still fluing just fine, and you put it in there and light it, and I mean nothing, it just lights up like easy.
Mike says, you were born to do this. Never let anyone's impatience or lack of contextual vision weigh you down. Just fly as you were born to do. That is amazing. Thank you, Mike. Jason says, Darwin, as a guy who has been in the naval power plant field for 30 years. Wow. That's awesome. You have piqued my interest on how to capture this steam and make it turn turbines. That is amazing, Jason. Thank you for that. Margaret says, sending love and happy vibes from the UK. Thank you for that. That's so sweet. Beaver Creek Farm Life says, y'all, I am so happy for you. Did you receive a text from me about 2 weeks ago?
I don't think we did, Alan.
I don't know. Did you send one? I'm sorry. Resend it.
I know I commented on one of your posts, but
I'm sorry. Yeah, I would. I'm sorry. All right, send us something, or I'll call you. Walter says, sounds like charking. Heating wood with low or no oxygen will outgas volatile vapors. Those vapors will rise and burn, leaving charcoal. But even normal burning converts the hydrocarbons to CO2 and H2O. We don't get charcoal. It burns everything down to just a really
it incinerates it. And what he's talking about is he's right. That's how it burns in a typical wood stove. So any particles or carbon that somehow doesn't get flashed off in the burn box goes up in the secondary burn chamber, and it gets a rush of hot oxygenated fresh air, because as this goes up the riser and up the chimney, it creates a negative pressure in there, and I have a vacuum hole into the vortex that sucks air in, and we've got some video footage on that in the next video coming out as well that explains that, and then it'll flash off any additional carbon in there. Now when I'm burning the wet wood, it's kind of crazy. You look in there and there's this round log and it just burns down, 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 down. And it's sitting in a bed of hot coals, but the end of it is unburnt. It just burns down until it's almost nothing. But
Lori says, hi, Darwin and Melanie. So glad you're able to do a live show again.
So
they
that's
are
two
awesome.
alumni from
Thank you,
Honey Do
Lori.
Carpenter universities.
Made my day. Okay.
Beaver Creek Farm Life
The
and
Clink
Lori.
says, running late, peeps. Just wanted to make sure I said hi. Aw, hi. Tim Fox says, good morning. Sorry to join so late. Happy Saturday to you both from sunny Mesa, Arizona. Aw, Tim, thank you. Paul says, great to see you guys streaming. Been following this channel for a long time. Kudos on the move. Aw, thank
Right.
you.
So, Melanie and I have been talking about when we're going to do the next Honeydew Carpenter University. And we're going to, we're going to seal the walls with the stucco mate and then pump aircrete into them. And we're thinking about doing that in the middle of May. We want a little feedback to see what you guys think. And, we have some alumni like Lori and
Terry,
Greg Walker and Terry Oaks and stuff. And
William.
man, I was halfway thinking it would be cool to just like invite those guys, because
Right. Susan says, I have a good draw, I think because I have an old house that's not insulated much. Awesome.
well, that does add to it. So, and I get where you're coming from there. If once your house gets warm, the air in the chimney, as light as it is, the air in your house isn't as heavy because it's warm as well. And so there has to be that differential of heavy, cooler air versus what's inside the chimney for it to flue properly. And it's kind of interesting because when it's like below zero outside, this stove pulls so freaking hard that it's scary. You have to throw some wet wood in to slow it down. But when it's warmer and it's only like 30 degrees outside and it's like 70 or 80 in the house, even though we don't have insulation, we can pull those kind of temperatures, which is insane that a little teeny stove with a 7-inch burn box can do that. That's crazy.
A peaceful wolf retirement says, hi, you guys. I really like your pioneer spirit. Thanks.
Thank
Beaver
you.
Creek Farm Life says, I bet you have a different number. I will message you all. Thanks.
Okay.
Paul says, maybe you should provide a link to your rocket stove works like a blowtorch. We will be putting a lot of videos out and doing that. And I like that name, works like a blowtorch.
And so in my off-site shop, because I don't have a shop built here yet, our plan is once we get a few days under our belt and try and work out all the kinks of releasing the book, we're going to go up there and Melanie's going to film me building several more stoves so that we can do video classes. Now, we could probably do it just with the footage we got from the original first Honeydew Carpenter University, but there's been a few changes and different things and whatnot, and I didn't go into real deep detail because I was right there beside him, and Melanie didn't get all the nuances and the little tips and tricks of working with sheet metal that I think would be integral for people to understand, how this goes. And so I want that type of a setting to be available to people. They can go, okay, here's the part that deals with sheet metal, and you can go and you can get that video and watch it while you go through your plans and you're building your stove. So it's, yeah.
That's our plans. All right. McGate Farm says, is there a way you might be able to design an incinerator for normal household garbage?
That's
interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. But normal household garbage involves lettuce and vegetables and different things that really, if you were just to save all that stuff and put it in a compost and just save the drier cardboards and stuff like that, yeah, I guess you could incinerate, but I for whatever reason, I still don't like trying to incinerate or burn plastics or anything like that. Those would have to be put into a gasification chamber, which I can build with this stove. I can build a separate chamber that the heat runs around, and it would gasify and it would turn that plastic or rubber or anything into what's called carbon black. And then that stuff you can put down as fertilizer, and what gases off of it in that gasification chamber, you run through a sawdust filter, and you can compress that methane gas into cylinders and actually use it like propane. It's kind of crazy.
Right. We have not, Aaron. Oh, I guess I should read the question. Aaron says, have you tried burning trash? These modern day power plants use trash to burn. Totally clean.
I haven't. However, what I just described earlier is kind of how they do it. And so, yeah, you have to put it into a deoxygenated chamber where they can't flame up, but they get heated up, and then it just releases the methane gas out of it and turns it to what's called carbon black. But yeah.
Yeah. So McGate Farm says that she would love to have a burn box. She said the burn box would need to be much larger so one could stuff a plastic garbage bag into it. I would love to be able to do that and have a clean burn. See, that I can understand that. That would be awesome. Paul says some fireplaces have an outside fresh air draw. Can you add to the stove design, maybe with an inline air intake flue?
So I have an example of some ideas of that very thing on some of my videos where before I ever built one, I first put some videos out explaining how I thought this was going to work. Because of the research that I had done on the original stove with Julie. And I give an example of having an outside air intake. I don't know that it would necessarily be necessary. A lot of people, believe they're going to get a back draw or something if they don't have an external air intake. But I haven't had that issue in this stove.
But we do have a separate air intake going into there too.
In
here.
Oh,
front. It's not from outside, but it's a separate
right.
air intake.
Yeah. What I think he's talking about is being able to shut the door and then have a air intake hose that goes into the outside cavity in front of the flat that goes and is brought in from outside. Yeah.
Beaver Creek Farm Life says, I will go through and get new clips of the stove and post a link in the comments later. And you will have to click on the live tab when you go to the Home HDC YouTube page. Okay.
Awesome.
That sounds awesome. Thank you. Cool. And Oki says, Darwin, how is your design able to operate with a bigger burn chamber?
Okay, so there is a lot of math involved here. And basically, what the energy that moves the air is heat, and that's where it is. And I use aircrete as a insulator or basically a heat containment apparatus, so that I can contain the energy and keep it where I want it to keep it, and then have it be released when I want it released and whatnot. And that's how I use aircrete, just as a energy containment. And so in a bigger system, basically I can scale it up, and I am building a shop up on an upper pad that we excavated, and eventually I have this huge old stove, that came out of a shop, and we call it the pig, and it's this huge tank with a front door on it. And I mean, this thing, if you tried to heat a shop with it the way it is, it would burn like freaking 15 cord of wood a year, But I want to make a rocket stove out of it and scale it up. That being said, I'm not going to go much over a 10 or 11 inch burn box, because the amount of BTUs that you extract out of the wood, even in this small situation here, is absolutely insane. And unless you have a huge shop, I can't imagine, because I had this in a shop that had a 20-foot ceiling and was like, what was it, 26 by 60. We did put a veil about 2/3 of the way through, just to, a tarp, just to kind of contain it in a certain area. But it had an open vent. It was completely uninsulated up top, and it was able to keep up in there well enough that we could work in it. It wasn't like 70 degrees or anything, but because it was uninsulated. But I will eventually do a video where I scale the stove up, but everything is going to have to scale up. The size of the hole. Oh, hey, buddy. The size of the hole in the exhaust out of the burn box, the size of the Vortex, everything is going to have to change. If this, when the air rushes up the riser in this stove, it's spinning so fast that when it does get a little red on top, it's this perfect little red donut, and the way that is created in nature, in like tornadoes and everything up, where you have low pressure and high pressure, and they're going opposite each other, and then they start spinning. And so as the air rushes up into the vortex area, it opens up a little bit and creates a lower pressure, and then it goes through and is restricted again. So it's kind of like, imagine a river where it's rapids, it's coming really fast, and then it hits a wide spot and it gets glassy for a little bit, and then it goes back good again. It creates that spin naturally inside of this stove, and it's really something interesting to see. I have a lot of footage where in the light you can't see the red donut on it, but then I said, "Hey kiddo," and I had my daughter turn off the light, and then I video the top of the stove, and there's just this nice perfect little red donut on there.
Right.
So
all right, you guys, there's one more.
Yeah, we're gonna answer this one more question, and then I really have to get.
Oh, there's two. So
okay, we'll answer two.
My point was to pull outside air in to increase the efficiency because of a greater temperature differential. Okay.
Oh.
When he was talking about the outside.
I see. Well, I like pulling the warmer air into it. It's just the oxygenation that I'm concerned with. I don't want, if it's like below zero outside, I don't want below zero air going into the burn box and creating and making it work that much harder to create enough heat. And so in my thinking, it wouldn't be necessary, but okay.
Omega says, have some barrels of water inside the house as a thermal flywheel storage. And then the gases will slow down and dump the heat. Colder air is denser.
Yeah, the cold air is much heavier.
Oh. Wow, Bruce, what an amazing.
Thank you so much.
Wow.
That's amazing. That's an awesome tip.
Thank you, Bruce. He says, buying y'all another coffee so you can get that book done. It's already a perfect idea, but a real artist can get caught up in the perfection. Smiley face and things like Bruce, you're amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
That's one of my
And-
downfalls. Is
Wow.
it's never good enough.
Drawing air from the outside shops, air infiltration. Wow. Okay. Carmen says, I'm looking forward to getting the rest of the updated plans. Yes, those are becoming within 48 hours, Carmen. So keep your lookout for your emails and hope that you still have the same emails that I sent the first ones to.
Exactly. And if anybody bought the plans and their email has changed for any reason, then you're going to have to look in the links on our videos and
Email
us.
And we'll see about getting that figured out and everything.
Yeah. We want to make sure we get it to everybody who.
The stove creates a vacuum inside the house. Yes. How
Yeah.
do we do the same? Coffee. I think there's a little button that you click if you want to send. I don't know exactly. Yes. Carmen Go said, yay. Yes. Cold air infiltration, significant factor. Yes. Paul says, thanks for everything. We'll check out the shop. Bruce H says, super chat.
Super chat. You click the super chat. That's how I guess you do it.
Yeah.
And then you can,
put however much you want.
give a donation or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
I am going to go get some more coffee, though, with that, Bruce. I love coffee. Hit the $ on the right of the chat. Well, Bruce, thank you so much for helping with that and everything and explaining, because I wasn't sure, so I appreciate that. Heath says, hit the $ on the right side of the chat window. Oh, thank you, Heath. That's awesome. And Oki says, y'all big time blessed. Today, forever, mighty and matchless name. My dog wants back here, so we're letting him back. Come on, girl. All right, so.
But we really do have to get back to, we're at a frantic pace. We're probably going to do like a 14-hour day today and just get stuff pushed out.
Push.
Yeah.
So.
And then after that, it's going to be more of the same. When we first started our channel, we kind of had to do that. The first month, we listed like 30 videos in 30 days, and we're going to do a similar, because there's so many different nuances and to show people. And I've got a lot of footage of it, and we need to get that information out to people. It's really critical. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
And this stove is it's the most amazing rocket stove on the face of the planet.
Very much so.
It really is. Yeah. And it saved us up here. I mean, we were contemplating leaving and going back down south and getting some temporary housing where we stayed before we came up here, in temporary housing for the winter. And I'm like, you just got to give me a chance to get that stove going. We'll get it going. Yeah. And it couldn't have come at a better time. Our pipes were freezing on our camper. We couldn't keep anything going. And the prior year, we had absolutely no water or no anything in our camper. Mm-hmm. And, I solved
hence
that.
Hence the bath tent.
Yeah, hence the bath tent. Yeah, and so it's been crazy.
Douglas says, all the best, y'all, from Florida. Thank you. And John says hello. Well, hello, John, and then goodbye, because we got to go. But you guys all have a wonderful day, and thank you.
All right, we love you guys.
Yes, love you guys.